Hello and welcome. Today we're diving into one of the most intense situations in all of medicine. What to do when a heart stops beating. We're going to walk through the modern-day playbook that helps medical teams turn pure chaos into a structured, life-saving response. Let's get right into it.
So let's just start with the biggest question, right? In that moment of crisis, when alarms are blaring and a life is literally on the line, what are the things that actually move the needle? The answer is a super organized, evidence-based protocol. And it all begins with the ticking clock. And this is the number that rules everything else. 8 minutes. The first 8 minutes of a cardiac arrest are the most critical window you can imagine. This is where the interventions with the biggest impact have to happen. Every single decision we're about to talk about is framed by this incredibly intense race against time.
Okay, before any drug is pushed, before any machine is even turned on, there's one absolute non-negotiable priority, and that is high-quality CPR. This is the bedrock. Everything else is built on top of this.
And the clinical protocols couldn't be more blunt about it. It's not just about doing compressions. It's about doing them really, really well. Pushing hard, pushing fast, and letting the chest fully recoil. This simple physical action is what keeps blood flowing to the brain, and it is directly linked to whether a patient has a fighting chance.
So, with that high-quality CPR going strong, the team's next job is to figure out what the heart is doing electrically. They slap on the monitor pads, and what they see on that screen immediately sends them down one of two completely different treatment paths. And this right here is the fork in the road. On the left, you've got shockable rhythms. Think of this like a car engine that's sputtering and backfiring. There's all this chaotic electrical energy, but it's not making the car move. The primary action? Defibrillation. You give it a jolt of electricity to try and reset it. But on the right, you have non-shockable rhythms. The engine is just silent, a flat line. Here, a shock won't do a thing. The primary action is medication, epinephrine, to try and get some spark of life going.
But what happens when you have that sputtering engine? You shock it, and it just keeps sputtering. This is a really tough spot to be in. It's called refractory VF/VT. It means the heart is just stuck in this chaotic loop and the standard fix isn't working. This is where things get more advanced.
For these really stubborn cases, the whole strategy changes. First, notice that top one. Consider early transport. That's the team thinking ahead, knowing this patient probably needs things only a hospital can provide. Then, they bring in more medication, like amiodarone, and they try this clever trick called a vector change. Basically, they move the defibrillator pads to shock the heart from a different angle. And look at that last one, epinephrine is delayed. Here, the focus is all about fixing that electrical problem first.
Now, let's jump back to that other path we talked about. For the silent engine, that asystole or PEA where there's no shockable rhythm, the game plan is totally different. Here, it's not about electricity, it's all about chemistry. You need to get medication into that person's system as fast as you possibly can.
Okay, but here's a really cool little detail, a real clinical pearl. We just said asystole, a flat line, is a non-shockable rhythm, and yet the protocol says to shock it once right at the beginning. So why on earth would you shock a heart that has no electricity? Well, the reason is actually brilliant. Sometimes a very, very weak and chaotic rhythm, what they call fine VF, can look just like a flat line on the monitor. So that one single shock is a safety net, a just-in-case shot in case there's a tiny bit of electricity that a shock could fix.
All right, so we've got our two main highways, shockable and non-shockable. But of course, medicine is never quite that simple. The protocols have to account for special situations and the different tools you need to treat them. So let's look at a few of these.
Airway management is a perfect example of how the reason for the arrest changes the whole approach. If you actually see someone collapse, it's probably a primary heart problem. The focus is on compressions, maybe some passive oxygen. But if someone is just found down, or if it's a child, the number one suspect is always a lack of oxygen. And in those cases, the team gets aggressive with ventilation and securing an airway, right from the get-go.
Here's another special case, high potassium, or hyperkalemia. Things like kidney failure can cause this, and it can absolutely stop a heart cold. But if the team sees some very specific clues on the ECG monitor, like these spiky-looking peaked T waves, they know exactly what to do. There's a direct antidote, calcium chloride. It's a perfect example of see this, do that medicine, even in the middle of all the chaos.
And what about kids? Like we said, arrests in children are often about breathing problems, so early ventilation is huge. But if they do need a shock, the energy level has to be calculated very carefully based on their weight. And as you can see, the dose goes up with each shock. It's a very precise, escalating approach.
Now, all these life-saving drugs are totally useless if you can't get them into the body. And this is why getting vascular access is such a huge deal. The latest research shows an IV is best for certain drugs, but if you can't get an IV started, the next best thing is an IO line, which goes directly into the bone marrow. And this is where protocols get super specific, now even preferring sites in the arm or the thigh over the shin, simply because they have a faster highway to the heart.
And this leads us to what is, without a doubt, the most difficult part of any resuscitation effort: knowing when it's time to stop. This is a decision that has to be guided not just by how long it's been, but by data and one very key objective measurement.
That measurement is called the terminal end-tidal CO2. It's a mouthful, but what it means is simple. After they've been doing CPR for a while, the team will pause for just 20 seconds and measure the carbon dioxide in the patient's exhaled breath. If that number is very low, it's an objective sign that there's very little metabolic activity, very little circulation going on. It provides a concrete piece of data to help guide that incredibly hard decision to terminate their efforts.
So when you step back and look at all of this together, that 8-minute window, the two distinct paths, the special cases, the objective data, what you're seeing is a system. It's an incredible system designed to impose order on the ultimate moment of chaos. It's really a testament to decades of science. And so I'll just leave you with this thought. What does this level of detailed, systematic response to a life or death emergency tell us about the power of preparation in any crises we might face?